To start off with, could you do me a giant favor and say your name and let me know where you are, please?
My name is Nathaniel Mjema, and I am right now in Pretoria, South Africa.
Wonderful. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
And so, my first question, I always like to start with the fun stuff, is who are you? Who are you as a human being? That can be anything you would like to share, values,
Mm.
qualities, whatever you would like to put in here about yourself.
Who am I?
Hmm.
I am a person of many faces, I would say. I would see myself as a person of many faces. I can be very quiet, depending on the environment, especially when I'm in new environment, I'm not quick at engaging. I like to stay back, listen, reflect before I come forward. I have to be comfortable to come forward to doing anything. Um, I am a little bit slow. I'm told, actually, even my colleagues feel that I'm slow, but this is I understand it. That is my wish to stay a little bit inside myself, reflect inside myself before I come out. That makes me a bit slow. Um, I like people. I'm a person who love people. I love people. I love to be with people with positive energy. People who have positive energy, they thrill me. Um, Someone like my daughter. I have a daughter. I have a 16 years old daughter, and she has so much positive energy. And I just love to be around her. And such people, they really, as I'm saying, thrill me. I come from a very rural background. Maybe that is also another reason for my being slow. Coming from a rural, remote part of Tanzania, up the mountains. I always tell people that the first time I saw a car, I was 7 years old. This just shows how remote the place I come from is. Um, so uh, this makes me going into the world and so on, interfacing with the world to still come a little bit slow into entering other spaces which are unfamiliar and so on. I am very, um, I was groomed in a culture whereby uh, being slow, being yourself, being a bit conservative is more appreciated than being upfront and only to realize that you have crossed a lot of other people's uh, boundaries and even crossed them, brushed them a little bit harshly or negatively.
Mhm.
So that has made me to be quite reserved in that sense.
Well, it only took us a year and a half to set up this conversation, so I may have experienced some of that. Yeah.
That could be one of the reasons.
Yeah. So, would you say that those are, I mean, accidents of your circumstances, or are these now pieces of your identity that you would say are values or qualities of yourself that you actually cultivate?
I think they are my values. I hold on to them. I have been safe with them, safe in myself, safe with others with these tendencies, with these values. I am very careful with crossing boundaries unless I am quite sure of what I'm doing and the person I'm doing this to. Then I can be phew, anything. That's why I'm saying I'm a person of many faces.
Mm.
There are people who wouldn't agree with me that I am conservative, I am uh, introvert to a certain extent. They wouldn't agree with me. But those are the people whom I feel very free.
Hmm.
Been in many places where I take time. I always notice something with myself. If I come to Heather's house and you show me a chair, you usher me to a chair, I will sit there until I am used. Every time I come to the house, I will be sitting on that chair unless someone else is there. I noticed
Hmm.
I'm uncomfortable to even take a different chair if that chair is there. It once I start getting open with a person, you will see that I can now sit anywhere or stand anywhere. That just shows my comfort, my level of comfort with the person.
Interesting little piece of self-awareness that you noticed that.
It took me time,
Uh-huh.
but I came to ask myself, why am I sitting on this chair all the time? And I tried to follow it.
Hmm.
What causes that? And I got this awareness when I reflected about it. Yeah.
So you said, I mean, positive energy in people like your daughter, but what are some of the other things that you notice make it possible for you to show up more, to come out more?
First of all, I said, if I'm comfortable,
Hmm.
um, if I'm dealing with something that I'm more confident, I have a little bit of a problem with coming out when it is very personal,
Hmm.
like this piece that I've just said.
Hmm.
It's something that I use, but I'm only saying it because I have followed it up and I'm confident about what I'm saying on it. But I take time to come out. Then the things that stimulate me are pleasant things, talking pleasant things, strengths about myself, about other people, about teams, about groups. There I join very quickly. It takes me time to push myself to look at and bring out from me negative things about others. I am very vulnerable. I can speak easily and without a, a wink about what I am not good at. And I don't feel ashamed to say that.
Why would you?
Yeah. Yeah, why would I be ashamed? I am never ashamed. So I see vulnerability as one of my strengths. Even with, uh, I remember at one time I was facilitating a high-level workshop in a big conference in Arusha in Tanzania. And I walked through past the edge of a table which had a spike, and it tore my pants just under my bums. And quickly, I thought, what should I do? I'm the only facilitator here. I cannot run to my hotel. So instead of hiding it, I stood in front of the whole group, turned around and say, this is what has happened.
Hmm.
And if you see this, it's just because I happened to go past this corner of this table. Please, all of you, be careful. But I'm not going to rush to my room um, to change
Hmm.
until we finish the workshop, the end of the day, until we come to the end of the day. So later, I didn't know that it touched some people. Later, some people came to me and said, wow, that made me so feel so positive to say something about myself
Hmm.
when I'm working with a small group. Because how could you do that? You know? So it just helped me to also say negative things about myself. I didn't know. It wasn't my intention, but it's just me with my vulnerability, and I'm quite safe. I feel safe to open up on such things. But at the same time, I'm saying it takes me time to talk about deeper emotional things within myself. Unless I see that it it can leverage certain things in others, then I'm open to talk about it.
I'm hearing the words use of self in my head as you're saying that, and I'm remembering I thought someday I might write a book called The Naked Therapist. Not about people who do this as a trick or as a gimmick, but just that authentic, like, this is me, I'm using everything way.
Yeah, yeah, using yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, with or without pants.
Yes.
Oh. Hmm. So,
Yeah.
relationally speaking, I am curious who you would say has had a strong impact on who you are as a human being. And this can be, people you've met in different places or times in your life, but who would you say has really shaped who you are?
Hmm. If I would start from my childhood, my mom,
Hmm.
my mom shaped who I am. Behind here, I have a picture. That is a picture of my mom.
Hmm. Hey,
And
Mom.
you'll see that I don't have a picture of my father there.
Ah, okay.
Nothing against my father.
There's no picture.
But I also realized that I have a picture of my mom and I don't have a picture of my father. And I thought about it. I was brought up, I was groomed by my mom. She was a very strong lady. My father was an absent father,
Hmm.
working in far places, coming only once in a month or two over a weekend. But I lived with my mom my whole childhood.
Hmm.
And she was a teacher, and and uh, during those times, they were not the Lutheran Church did not allow a woman to be working if the husband is working. So she had to stop her teaching career to take care of us, which I later looked at it and felt, wow, what a sacrifice she made on us. But growing with her, and she taught me so many things. She was a little bit disabled at a certain time when I was 8 years old. And therefore, we had to take up a lot of chores in the house, and even doing those chores, which traditionally are framed to be girls' chores. We had to take them up because our mom could not do them. She had a stroke, so which disabled her a bit. So we had to jump in as children, and there I learned a lot. I learned what it is to be a human being, what it is to take care of the immediate people I am with. Um, I feel there is a lot of feminism inside me, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. I feel a lot for others.
Mm.
So my mom, I would put her the first person. That is at becoming a human being. The whole village, I grew up in a community, in a village where we knew each other, your cohort. But what was quite interesting is that our parents were the parents for the whole village. I was reprimanded when I was doing funny things. I was reprimanded, even got a hiding from some members of the community. And I wouldn't go back and say to my mother that, oh, so and so had done this to me. Never, because she or he was doing her parental duty on me.
Mhm.
At that time, it's not like we liked it. I did not like it, but I grew up to appreciate it a lot. They didn't wait to go to my mom to tell them the wrong things I was doing.
Mm.
They took the responsibility of my mom, punished me right there, sometimes not even telling my mom. They didn't even talk to my mom about it. I wouldn't dare to do that. So the community brought me up, and
Mhm.
I learned a lot from them. I always feel indebted to the community. When I grew up at professional level, um, I was lucky to meet someone you might know, Johan Lohmeyer,
Mhm.
and I feel free to mention his name. Jochen we have been friends and compatriots, colleagues, working together from 1982 to date. And him being 4.5 years older than I have always taken him as not just my friend, but as an elder brother. And he has stood to be that to me. Whenever I have something deep, touchy, emotional, the first person I would tell is Johann Lohmeyer.
Mm.
And we discuss, disagree, agree on so many things very openly. Um, he would stand up and say, Nathaniel, you can't do this because of this. And I say, in my culture or in whatever, I'm going to do it because with this and this and this, that is the right thing to be for me to do. Because, okay, do it, but you must be careful about this and that. So he helps me to shape the boundaries, especially now that I am interacting with people at different levels who are not necessarily coming from that culture, from that village or tribe where I come from, where we know the values of what I'm doing.
Mm.
So John Nkum is another person whom I have related very strongly, and Chantel Weil. We have we have interacted both professionally and personally.
Mhm.
When I am also in deep problems, like when I lost my son,
Mm.
they are the people who comforted me so much, and I felt their warmth. But not only that, in many other things, we have been we have walked our journeys, adulthood journeys together. And I must appreciate that they have done a lot to me. My ability uh, to state things as they are, I must admit, I learned from them
Mm.
in there are different ways,
Mhm.
but they prompted me, they pushed me to come out of this village, community, tribal, Nathaniel, to be able to look into the new things which are there and accept them and work with those instruments. Yeah,
Oh, I mean, to integrate
those
them, right? Not to replace one thing with another. It's
exactly.
Mhm.
Building on
Yeah.
what uh, what I had learned in the village.
I have to
Yeah.
say they are some of my favorite humans. So, yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your son. Those experiences do shape people. I've experienced something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know your story myself, so yeah.
Mm. No, it's a very touchy part of me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, I do have another question, which may or may not continue these lines. But I would like to know what event or circumstances you would say have really shaped who you are. Sometimes there's life-changing moments, and sometimes it is, a time and space that we find ourselves, and there's a before and an after.
Mm. I have many tipping points in my life. My life is like this. So, and I have learned very much in all these moments. The first moment early on in my life is that which I've explained about my mother um, getting stroke, and we were only three of us in the house. It was my mother, my brother, and I. So I was 8 years old, my brother was 10 years old, and here we have a mom who, from one day to another, is no longer able to go and fetch firewood, go and work in the farm, to go come and cook for us, to do this and that and that. And we had to change our ways of living in a flash of a moment. We had to take over. The
Mhm.
two little children had to take over. Our first two siblings were girls, and they were all in boarding school.
Mhm.
And the two of us were in day school. So we were living with our mother without our sisters, our two sisters. So that for me was my first tipping point, having to take up responsibilities, which all my other colleagues, friends in the village were laughing at because we are taking all roles which were for girls. In my culture, a man does not take a bunch of firewood on his head. We did that.
Mhm.
And that was very queer to some people.
I'm curious a little bit about the process of how your family made the decision not to take one of the girls out of school to come and do those things.
My mother was a very strong lady.
Mm.
She still believed that she could
Ah.
do those things. We saw her failing and we had to jump in.
Mm.
One. And two, those girls' schools were like the best schools. So leaving them to complete their primary school in those schools would meant giving them good education.
So the value of what they had versus you experiencing some laughter from your friends.
Yes,
Hmm.
but my mother was also a lady who believed that on equality, that we should be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you
So
also have a head and the wood stays on it if you carry it.
exactly,
So, I mean,
exactly. So we would fetch water, we would fetch, and would initially our friends laughed at us. Uh, Later in my life, I realized how important that was to me and in my life. Cooking at the age of 8, I would cook a meal for uh, 3 people in the house, right from preparing it from basic, uh, from maize without which has just come from the farm
mhm,
to making it as a food to eat. So I would do it at the age of 8. And to date, I still do the same.
mhm.
And I feel so proud of that.
You
You know,
should. I mean, it's the connection to the whole process. It's such a basic Gestalt metaphor is relationship to food, right? But
exactly.
yeah, some
Exactly.
people, 40 years old still don't know. They don't understand the process of making a meal.
Yes.
Mhm,
Yeah. So that was my first tipping point, and it was traumatic
mhm.
for a while, but we got used to it and it became part of us, and it has built me to the person I am today.
Mhm,
Um, the second tipping point was when I finished my what we call O level, ordinary level education. I didn't go to high school, and I went to training college to become a teacher. I became a teacher, but I felt so bad that I didn't make it to go to higher school,
mhm,
higher education. And I made a decision that whatever happens to my life, I will start as a private person, as a private candidate, and be at par. I gave myself 10 years, that in 10 years, I will be at the same level as my colleagues who went through to higher school and university. After ordinary level,
mhm,
which is 12 years in school, you have 2 more years for high school.
mhm,
I didn't make it to the high school. As a result, I went to a teacher's college,
mhm,
but I wasn't interested in teaching because my whole family was were teachers. My father was a teacher, my mother was a teacher, one of my sisters was a teacher. So I didn't like it. Now, but when I went to to college, the only thing that I liked there was psychology,
mhm.
child psychology. But that introduced me to psychology, and I loved psychology. And I realized that my mom, having been a teacher, what she was doing to us was because she knew she had this knowledge of psychology. And I really loved it. That was my tipping point. But again, I had to race studying as a private candidate to get to the same level. And truly, 10 years after, I was at the same level as others. I had already gotten my master's degree. I missed it by 1 year, though.
Mm.
I had planned it to happen in 9 years, but I made it in 10 years. So for me, that gave me uh, the feeling, the push to push myself to the edge
Mm,
in order to attain my goals. So that was another tipping point. Maybe a third one was having a family at the age of 22. I married at the age of 22. Again, that pushed me to work very hard. Having a family, I am young, sticking to my family, being with my family at the same time studying for higher education and so on. That glued me with my family a lot.
mm,
So I grew up with my first son, and maybe that's why I'm saying his death
mm,
touched me a lot because he was like 22 years younger than I.
mhm,
That was the other tipping point where um, I had to grow up to be an adult very quickly and had to take care of my family. And I insisted. My mother had wanted that I don't marry. Instead, I let my wife bring up the child and later take over. But I refused. I said I wanted to bring up my
mm,
child myself. So that again has defined who I am. I'm very close to my family.
mm.
Yeah.
And you also have a 16-year-old daughter?
The story is I have two families.
Okay.
My first family with my first wife, I had five sons. Five sons. Then my wife died
Oh,
and I remarried. I was so lucky to have a daughter. That is the 16 years daughter. So
mm,
I have a grown-up family,
mhm,
everybody independent, and then I have a daughter who is 16 years old. Maybe I should also mention here that I actually lost two of my sons,
mm,
all when they were adults.
mm.
One in 2012 and the other one in 2021.
That's hard.
So they were all adults. Um, I sometimes feel so bad. At one time, I had my five boys. Now I have three. But fortunately, when I remarried, my wife had a son of her own. So I still have four sons and one daughter.
Mm. That's quite a parenting arc.
And I'm quite happy with my family,
Mhm,
including my stepson.
mhm,
I am his father
mm.
through and through, and I'm so proud about it. Yeah.
So I'm curious. This is a bit of a bigger question. I mean,
Mm.
within and beyond family, maybe in a larger social context. How do you experience power and privilege in your life?
Mm. As I said, my mother was a very strong woman. My father and my mother were very strong people. The little time I spent with my father, I preferred to stay a few meters away from him because I don't know what is going to happen.
Different kinds of power?
Yes.
Mhm.
My mother was also very strong, and she believed that if she pushed us hard, we'll become better people.
Mhm.
And maybe it worked. And some cases it may not have worked, but um, that was her understanding about bringing up a child. So she beat me quite a bit, but I was also a very uh, naughty boy. So I must admit. Um, so the first experience of power was between me and my father, and my father and mother, who were very strong. And I believed then that the father or the teacher or has powers over the children or over uh, the students. And that's how I went into teaching, and I found that was what was working.
Mm.
Teachers powerful, and uh, the student had nothing to say before the teachers. So I then became a teacher, and became the privileged person. This changed quite a bit when I started learning Gestalt. It was the hardest thing for me to do. Realize that my children had a place in me, which I had not actually accentuated, I had not supported.
Mhm.
And I felt so bad. I therefore sat with my children. By then, they were the four boys. They were adults. The youngest by then was like 18. I apologized. We sat for like 4 hours where I was there and I was apologizing. When they were comfortable with me, they told me what they felt, how harsh I was. And I apologized because I realized is that it was because I didn't have time with them,
Mm.
and therefore forcing them to do things, forcing them to be like me was my way of thinking, my thinking that this is what is going to make good people out of them, which was very wrong. I remember at one point in my life when my firstborn was 18, he stood up one day and he said, "Dad, you want me to be as smart as so and so. You want me to be as sharp in school as so and so. You want me to be a soccer player as so and so. When will I be myself?" That, then I realized the mistake I was making. And when I was apologizing, I reminded him of what he said. And he truly um, said that that was really coming from deep inside him,
Pretty existential.
existential.
Mhm.
So from there on, I started unlearning myself about power and relations.
Mhm.
I started um, going back to myself, to my real self, and realized that I had lots of power in being softer and appreciative and uh, leading them from behind.
Hmm.
And that there is so much power in that by making them more powerful than I. And they were very happy with me from there on. Um, to date, in my old age now, I'm so happy to see that they take over everything.
Hmm. No power struggle from you.
No power struggle. I may say a word here and there and say, what do you think? So I see them as my colleagues,
Mhm.
and that has freed me from lots of responsibilities.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's nice. It sounds a little bit like coming into someone's life and waiting for them to tell you which chair you can sit in instead of coming in with all of the entitlement as if you can just own the house.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Yeah.
how is that aging process for you? How's that going? How are you experiencing your age?
I um I work with younger people.
There seem to be more and more younger people as we age.
Yes. I have friends who are so young as to be younger than my own children.
Hmm.
And for me, working with them has made me to uh, to to age very softly and running after them. Of course, now with AI and what have you, I see my limits,
Hmm.
and I use them a lot more. I
Hmm.
use my sons a lot more, and I become too dependent at times with them. When I'm in trouble, I call them and they quickly sort me out. My
Yeah, the
son is
first
my
couple of times you have to ask a younger person for help with technology, it hurts a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah,
It helps. So, in which case, I am actually relinquishing the power
yeah.
to them and let them lead me. So it fits very well,
Hmm.
uh, that. Um, I try to remain physically strong,
Hmm.
with some bones aching, but I try to be physically strong and fit,
Hmm.
um, and to read. I
Hmm.
try to read, to go into new things and try out. And and that's where I need them to come in and, hey, I'm stuck here. What does this mean? What is it?
Hmm.
How do you understand it? And they explain to me. So I depend very much on them. And at the same time, I'm trying to keep myself health-wise and mentally fit. I don't know how long I will be able to do that, but at least I'm trying.
Hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, we're not immortal, so.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So you mentioned the word Gestalt. Where did that come into your life? How did you connect with it? What happened?
Gestalt as such, um, I tumbled onto Gestalt when Johann Lohmeyer, Chantel, John Kum, myself, and a couple of other colleagues, we were running a training in Germany for 7 weeks every year from 1991 to 2004. Between 1991 and 1994, we had to prepare the materials at the same time offer the course. It was development management and team working techniques, especially the team working techniques. So it was technical on one hand, and we also had a soft side on team working techniques. In the process, with multicultural interaction, because participants came from all over third world countries, including Mexico at times, but also the team of trainers, the composition, normally six in a training, 6 to 8 in a training. Some would come and go. We were also quite multicultural. And that led us into some conflicts. We were spending a lot of energy trying to sort out ourselves, as there was a lot of work pressure, and then it's the pressure from relations amongst ourselves, which we paid no attention to.
Mm.
In 1993, I think, 1993, Johann Lohmeyer felt, no, we needed someone to help us. So we had a supervisor, someone who came in as a supervisor, just observed us for a few days, and she said, you know what, maybe you need a coach. And what is a coach? 1993, what is a coach? After some discussions, we thought, let's try for 5 days. We took after every 3 weeks, we had a break, 1 week break. We took that 1 week break. I think it was 3 or 4 days. This coach took us in. It was a Canadian lady, Shirley Voitas, who is a Gestalt practitioner. And she was running her clinics and so on. She took us in for 5 days. We were very doubtful. I was doubtful. And I think John as well was quite doubtful. But Johann encouraged us a lot. So we paid her. She took us for 5 days. And it changed us. So there was something about it that we were getting connected amongst ourselves. 7, 8. I think we included a few other. 7, 8, or 10, I don't remember. Then we thought, no, let's have another one. At the end of the training, we took another week. And then the following year, we had 3 weeks. At the beginning, in the middle, at the end, and so on. So by 1995, she said, I think I should hand you over to something bigger that is going to help you. And that was IOSD, the International Organization of Systems Development from Cleveland. The first group went there, and Johann Lohmeyer, Chantel, and John, they went to this IOSD 2, and I went to IOSD 3. So this is how we bumped into Gestalt. It really helped us. To date, people who were fighting, we have become the biggest friends. Since 1996, 97, 95, 96, 97. We became very good friends. So, so much that whenever I have anything, these are the people I would go to. Whenever they have anything, they would come to us and so on.
Mhm.
So that is how we bumped into Gestalt and we started seeing things changing. And immediately we realized how useful it is in development.
Mhm.
We started realizing that we have been working with technical side of the subject, but this subject has another side of it, the soft side of it, the relations between leaders and the followers, relations between people of the same level, and so on.
Mhm.
So immediately we also saw how functional it was to the subject that we were dealing with. We started applying it in our teaching. So from 1985, when John and Jochen and Chantel have started, we started picking up some elements and tried it with our participants. I was behind them, but I didn't understand what we were doing as much as they did.
It's an
But
experiment.
based on the foundation that I got from Shelley Voitas, I knew it was worth it because it had worked with us.
Hmm. And
So
so
we applied.
what did you find? What have you come to understand that Gestalt has given you? And yeah.
I think the best gift that Gestalt has given me is to understand that things are not only technical in terms of um, Ed Nevis and Sonia Nevis. There is not only strategic, but equally important is the intimacy.
Mhm.
That fitted so much into my personal being, upbringing. It made me go back and look at my upbringing from childhood. And I saw a lot of that, which I had not valued.
Mhm.
And therefore, for me to be attracted to Gestalt, to embrace Gestalt, it comes from my childhood.
Mhm.
It connected me very firmly. Me, the planner. I grew up as a development planner, and I thought everything you do a nice plan, everything would work. It connected the planner and the social, emotional person that I was brought up from my childhood. So it just brought me together. That is the best gift that Gestalt has given me,
Mhm.
to be aware of myself holistically than it was before.
Well, and that's lovely because it's not Gestalt doing you a favor and giving you something new. It makes you aware of something that was there, but out of awareness.
Yes, exactly. It made me how aware of how valuable
Hmm.
are the small things that I have learned, small experiences that I have made in my whole life, positive and negative, how they finally come together to make me who I am.
Hmm.
So I see Gestalt as the gluing factor of the different puzzles in me.
And now this is the question where I may challenge a little bit of your humble being. What do you do with all of this? Because my understanding is that you do not do small, simple things, that you do a lot of very complex work with all of this. Can you say a little bit about where this has taken you and where you've taken it?
As I said, I come from development management. That's what I trained on and I practiced. And I was lucky to practice. That's where Johann Lohmeyer comes very strongly
Mhm,
because he was a planner coming from Germany.
mhm,
And I had graduated as a planner in Tanzania. And we started working together. And he challenged me a lot. Coming from a socialist background, Tanzania was a socialist country during Mwalimu Nyerere's time. Um, and I challenged his hardcore economist
mhm,
side of him. And so the two of us learned a lot from one another. So um, this is the first part of me, the strategic part of me. And with Gestalt coming in there, from 1998, when I finished my IOSD training and still working with Johann, John, Chantel in the training in Germany, the first thing was to use the techniques that we have learned inside our training. So jointly, the three of us, there was also another guy who also participated in Gestalt. Four of us would bring this into the training. In fact, at one time we used to start with a week on the soft skills,
mhm,
being to support people to be aware of who they are before we went into strategic uh, cognitive work and so on. And we intertwined the cognitive work and strategic and cognitive um, and soft skills in what they ought to be. Our participants, our trainees, what they ought to be when they go back, to also help them to get out of the thinking that if you plan something well, it will be done well. There is a management, there is a leadership element which they needed to also bring, and that has to be brought by themselves,
mhm,
use of self. So supporting them to change, and they always told us that there is something that we see in you as individuals, as a team, which we don't understand. But it's so nice the way you work together, the way you work as individual, the way you support us in our learning and so on. So that is the first area where we took Gestalt as well as our development management learning. At the moment, from there, I also had an opportunity to apply it with an organization that I was working in here in South Africa. I was working with one organization 70% of my time. So I was training them, I was supporting them on the field, I was coaching them to become leaders and not instructors, which is what they were before.
mhm,
When they go and work with the communities, when they go out and work with the leadership in sub-national level, district, local level, uh, how to work with them. So we supported them in that. And then I have my third part of my life, which is doing consultancies. I have been doing consultancies since 1994, just to when I went full-time into consultancy in 1994. So I do consultancies. Initially, it was mainly on development management. I have moved quite a bit into leadership development. So I support leaders, I train leaders, I coach leaders. That's what I'm doing now. And my whole idea is to plow this back to get Gestalt. I have joined the John, the Chantel, to bring Gestalt into Africa.
Hmm.
So that is now my mission. Yes.
Well, and when you say plow it back from the leadership down, I mean, you're just going to infiltrate the whole system.
Yes.
What is leadership to you, though? I hear so many people use that word in so many different ways.
Hmm. Um, Leadership for me is more about providing what is missing, bringing in what is missing in an individual in a way that the individual can challenge himself, herself, and find ways out of it, and therefore learning. Or challenging a team to look into what is missing, find how they can fix it or they can bring it in, practice it, learn from it, and let it become the new being they wish to be. So leadership for me is more about leading from behind. But the person who is changing or the person who is doing the work is the one who is more active than the leader. Leader can ask questions. Leader can bring a subject for discussion. Leader can bring his or her ideas, but very clear that my interpretation of this is this. What is yours? You know, that kind of dialogue, bringing more of dialogue than instructive. So for me, it's like changing myself from that teacher who used teacher, that planner, that trainer planner
Mhm.
who used to tell, to someone who receives, who work it out with the others to find a new whatever that comes new, which I don't predetermine before. And for me,
That's a very
that's
big difference, right? With the power over to the power to.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
You were saying, sorry, for you.
I was saying it normally feels to me like I have never been in a labor ward to give birth to a child, but it feels like a new child is being born when when I see people starting to change and um, they start becoming different from from what they used to be before. I feel that joy inside me.
Mhm.
That's what I felt when I saw this team of Gestalt Africa in Moshi failing to part. They were so, you know, tied to one another and feeling something strange inside themselves. So that is what I find very interesting in Gestalt. It's not only the content, but more the application of that content and the way we learned on how to deliver it, which is experiential. That for me is what is most attractive. And I have changed also my ways of delivering even the development management aspects, the strategic aspects, to get people to evolve and pick it up from within themselves.
The word may not fit, I don't know, but does it feel like this is in some way a decolonizing practice? In changing ways of learning and changing ways of relating and changing ways of delivering, but not just cutting and pasting a European model or an American model.
Mm. Mm. Uh, I like the word decolonizing if it's when it's used in its very broad sense, because there is also a lot of some cultural aspects of mine which I have to change. I have to uh, to confront in myself and to subject others to confront it as well. We are very patrilinear and hierarchical, very strong hierarchical, as I mentioned before. I had to confront that. I have to deal with it. I have to deal with it, and I support others to deal with it when they see it to be important and necessary to them. Yeah. So colonization for me goes beyond Europe, Africa. It's more about what I learned before, which colonized me to think this is the way I should do, to a new way of thinking. Now, wherever these ideas are coming from, for me, that is decolonizing myself. And the more I confront my own heritage, the better I feel. And it's not about just taking these ideas and infusing. In fact, they fit so well into the way I was brought up without anyone knowing about a word of Gestalt. Relating, for example. I was brought up in a very relational climate. Today, if I do a small function in my house, about 60% will be people who I have no blood relations with, but they are so much part of me, just like my own families. Yeah.
So another question that I often ask people is, do you feel yourself to be part of a Gestalt community? I mean, you're talking about your extended relations, but in the world of Gestalt itself, do you find that to be a community? Do you feel part of? Do you feel othered?
I would ask myself, what is a Gestalt community? I am in a community with many Gestalt practitioners, and I feel to be strongly part of them, as I mentioned earlier on. And it's expanding. It's expanding with the people, the quality of relations, even if I meet people for a short while, 4 days, 5 days, the quality of relation that we exchange, that we live, is so deep that it is difficult to just break after that. And it's like the people of my village or my community or my family, extended family, whom I spent years with. So we get to that same depth or even deeper and genuine. So if that is what is called Gestalt community, I live in 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 that community.
Mm.
But if it's just a number of people who have gone through Gestalt training, I I wouldn't
And
say
peer-reviewed articles and publications, and
yes,
doesn't
yes.
feel like community to me either, to be honest.
Just helps me to understand this community
Uh-huh.
that I am in or that I'm interacting with.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't say that I'm in a community with
Hmm.
them.
Yeah. I met you in the community of practice, which is a very different experience than a group of people who I do not feel connection with.
Yes.
Hmm.
And maybe with time, there are people who are in the community of practice whom I have had that deep interactions with.
Hmm.
But that 2 hours does not make me feel to be in community with them.
Hmm.
Yes, we have shared, but maybe I'm a person who need a little bit more time to really take a person in and to also share myself. But I realized that 5 days, 6 days in Moshi, for example, and the depth of interaction that we were going in, and the vulnerability each of us showed, and so on, brought me so close to these people, to each one of them, in different ways.
Hmm.
So if when I'm in contact with them in the community of practice, those I would say I'm in community with them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sort of to start closing up, which I don't want to, but I do, with respect to your time, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced or do experience within your work and your practice?
Challenges I experienced
Hmm.
to,
Within your
oh,
work and your practice,
okay.
either historically or in the present or the ones you see coming in the future. What seems to be a challenge for you?
The first challenge that I find is it is so strange the way we operate as Gestalt practitioners. It is so strange to many people, such that they don't see its importance until they have had a deep interaction with me or with us.
Mhm.
So you find many managers who say, I'll give you half a day, I'll give you 2 hours. And 2 hours, you haven't brought a depth
Mhm.
that is worth them thinking about it. So to introduce Gestalt is becoming a very slow process. It's a person who has been through several hours and who have been really processing it inside himself, herself, who is in um, an executive position, who can see the value. So that's the first thing, because it is not the way our 20 something years of schooling
Mhm.
ever touched.
And it's
So
hard. It's hard to get the whole elephant in the door when someone is asking
exactly,
for a 45-minute PowerPoint.
exactly.
Mhm.
Everyone is in a rush to do this and that. And I am here, I want to slow them down to get to themselves. So it's that conflict that happens there. I still want to use this 1 hour because that's all what I have had. And I may not really get through, but if I don't use it, it means this group will never even hear of it.
Mhm.
So this,
And it's hard because sometimes in that 1 hour, people realize that they're missing something. They don't know what, but they know that it wasn't fully there,
yes,
but they
yes,
notice that sort of absent
yes.
polarity.
So I choose something small.
Mhm,
I engage them in that 1 hour
mhm,
and see, or 2 hours, and experiment and see what happens. What I have seen is a number of people, some who fake it because maybe they saw how serious and I was, they fake it, but a few who really get deep into it. Now, both have I would use both. Those who faked it, if they can give me another chance to do it for a longer period of time,
mhm,
although they didn't believe in what I was saying, I'm more able to reach a little bit deeper
mhm,
and get it through. Those who got it at the beginning but are confused, I was also confused, but they give me time to try it out. I also work with them. I have others who completely don't want to hear anything about it because it's wastage of time.
mhm.
We are here for a reason, and that reason is to produce this. We have outputs to chase and so on. You also get such people. But what I have seen is that there are many people who start from that position. If for one reason or the other we have enough time to engage with them, the way they would turn around, it is so worthwhile,
Mhm.
so satisfying. We have worked here in the city of Pretoria, and um, an accountant at a high level, the way he turned around, it's unbelievable. He would give us the time whenever we have time. That's how much we were able to touch him in a big group. Last Friday, we had a 3 days session for um, change management, and the team which was rushing because it was Friday. Friday here is like half day.
Mhm.
We went up to 4 o'clock, and everybody, oh, 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, it took 28 minutes for half of the people to leave.
Mhm.
28 minutes that I was following. They were still there talking to one another,
Mhm.
getting busy, saying goodbye to this, saying goodbye to that one. And so it took them 28 days for half. Then I left. So, yeah, that's the power of Gestalt, and that's what I would like to support.
Mhm.
Brings people as people together and away from the degrees and positions and whatever. And that they can use that now in their work because they can relate very easily.
Okay. And so my final question is now what? Either for yourself or for Gestalt, what do you see as next steps? Not
Next step,
bring in the planner. We don't want the planner.
next step for myself.
Mhm.
I admit that I'm one of those people who I have not done much in terms of qualifying myself in Gestalt. Other people have gone into coaching and so on. Uh, I have been practicing without qualifying myself. So what I'm taking with me is to qualify myself, maybe in coaching, um, that kind of thing. Um, that's one part of it. My other part is to bring Gestalt strongly in Tanzania. I have learned that there is a couple of people who are in the list of Gestalt Africa. From Tanzania, there is only one person, but in East Africa, there is three. So I want to start to see how we can join hands and bring Gestalt more to Tanzania. We have been able to bring it to to South Africa. That's what we did between 99 and say to 2015, 16.
Mhm.
And then we started moving to Africa, but I feel Tanzania is left behind, and that's my other target. So it's myself
Mhm.
and Tanzania, apart from participating in Gestalt Africa.
So slow,
But
but you'll get to the qualifying part and you'll bring it home at the end of the
I
day.
want to qualify myself. It's not, um, I want to have the coaching certificates to be qualified in coaching certificates, because still there are people who without certificates, they don't see who you are. So I've been learning without such renowned certificates, and it is just worthwhile to invest a little bit of time in that to get
I
such
value
qualification.
both forms. I really do.
Yeah,
You can have the certifications and the papers without the content, and you can have the content without the certifications.
right. But I think, yeah, it makes it easier for people to trust you,
Mhm.
because you're trusted by certain renowned organizations, certified organizations. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that is what is ahead of me.
Okay. And do you have any final thoughts or any other little piece of yourself you would like to bring in to close today?
Uh, I think I am very appreciative with what we have done. I had not thought through all these things that we talked about today. For me, it was like a coaching session.
I'm not certified.
Made me reflect on things that are at the back of my mind, which I had not put them together. You helped me so much to consolidate. I didn't think that just talking could help me to concretize my thoughts about myself this much. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the power of dialogue as a mechanism. I mean, it's not just talking. It's not simple.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is very powerful,
Yeah.
very
Well,
powerful.
thank you. Thank you for filling up all of that space with yourself. I really appreciate that you did come in. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Thank you for being persistent, and my apologies for prioritizing other things.
absolutely fine. All
Thank
right.
you.
So let's leave this here and I will do as I said. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Where's the recording?